Welcome to the Paul Wallis channel. In these short stories of origins, I'm going to be telling some anomalous stories from the news, strange phenomena in the current day, and asking how they relate to what our ancestors had to tell us in world mythology and in our ancestral narratives. Is there any connection between what we're experiencing today and what our ancestors had to say? And I'd love to hear from you as to your experiences and your thoughts on these things. So I'll end each one of these with a question so that you can jump into the comments and we can get into a conversation. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell for all notifications. In recent years in the United States of America, various groups have been looking into the question of what is being sprayed into our atmosphere that might have a damaging effect on human health. Of course, it's part of a much bigger concern, the question of what is in our environment that we have manufactured that's not good for us. And so people talk about chlorine and fluoride in water, finding heavy metals in our soils, in our oceans, in our seafood, in our food chain, and asking questions about what that is doing to human health. We're not the first generation to have concerns that the impact of human behavior on our environment might have a deleterious effect on human health, consciousness, and longevity. When I was a boy in the 1970s, I remember stories coming in from investigative journalists who were pursuing the examination of the effect of leaded fuel on human health. And reports were coming in, research was being done that was showing that children who grew up in a very polluted environment, polluted by the exhaust fumes of traffic, or who went to schools that were surrounded by exhaust fumes from idling traffic, were experiencing health problems. They were becoming more aggressive and appeared to be less intelligent as a result of lead entering the bloodstream and poisoning their brains. Well, of course, at the beginning of all this was regarded as a wild conspiracy theory. It was later found to be quite correct. And it's the reason that today we now drive vehicles with lead-free fuel, because we don't want to damage our children's health. We don't want lead in our bloodstream or in our brains, making us more aggressive or less intelligent. We weren't the first generation to have health problems because of lead in our environment. It was in the 1800s that historians first posited the idea that one of the things that damaged the culture of the Roman Empire was that people were being poisoned by the town water in the city of Rome, because it had a lead content that was 100 times higher than the natural spring water of the region surrounding Rome. The reason for that was they had lead-lined pipes. Well, we've since learned not to lead-line our pipes because we don't want, again, to become more aggressive and less intelligent because there's lead in our blood and poisoning our brains. So this concern about pollutants in our environment damaging not only our longevity but our health and our consciousness, this concern is ages old. Does this relate to anything in our world mythologies or ancestral narratives? You bet it does. If you go to the Mayan story of origins that's been retained in the Popol Vuh, this was a story that was translated in Guatemala by a Dominican priest by the name of Francisco Jimenez. The Popol Vuh tells of how in the beginning human beings were more advanced, more intelligent, more conscious, more capable than we are today. But that the beings who had come from somewhere else to manage Project Earth found us a bit too smart to manage. And so they had to find a way of dumbing us down to the point where we were limited to our 5 physical senses. This is how the story goes. And so the chief genetic engineer, whose name was Kukulkan, Cucumatz, or Quetzalcoatl, depending on which iteration of the story you read, came up with a solution. And the solution was in fact a vapor. This vapor when it was administered to human beings, had the effect of switching off all those higher cognitive abilities, so that the telepathy, precognition, remote viewing, self-healing, all those abilities got switched off. Now you might ask, well, how is that vapor administered? How many human beings are in this story? Was it just sort of sprayed in the face of each human being? Or are we looking at populations of human beings so large that it would have to be sprayed over populations, sprayed into the atmosphere? And the moment you begin asking those questions, it takes you right back to the story I began with of what's in our environment today. And are these ancient ancestral stories given to tell us about the past, or to warn us about the present or the future, to teach us to take precautions to see that history doesn't repeat? I'd love to hear your thoughts, any experiences that you've had that relate to this, glimpses of higher capacities, or stories that you know that relate to these questions. Please jump into the comments. I'd love to have a conversation. And remember to subscribe and click on the bell for notifications. And I'll see you next time.